So today's objective is to simplify expressions, right? Anytime we're working with numbers in math, we always want to find the simplest form of an answer. Doesn't matter if we're dealing with fractions or decimals or distance. Anytime we're answering a question in math, you're always going to be asked for the simplest form of that answer. So in order for us to find the simplest form of equations, we need to know how to simplify them. And before we can even get to equations, we need to talk about how to simplify expressions. Does anybody here know the difference between an expression and an equation? I'm going to give you guys a few seconds to think about that, and then we're going to answer the question. So an expression and an equation are very similar, but they're also very different. If I were to give you 3x plus 2 and 3x plus 2 equals 8, what is the difference between the two things that I've just written down here? One of them has an equal sign and one of them does not, okay? So an equation will always have an equal sign. That's why it's an equation, because of the equal sign. An expression is some sort of mathematical sentence that has no equation in it. Okay, you can have as many operations, as many plus and minus and division and multiplication signs as it wants. It can be a number by itself. It could be a letter by itself. It could be as long as it wants. But as long as there's no equal sign, it's just an expression. We cannot find the answer to this expression because x could be anything. X could be 1 or 2 or 3 or 1,000,000 or -700. We have no idea, we have no way of knowing because the problem's not equal to anything, so we can't solve for it. Unlike this equation, we could definitely figure out what number, when we multiply it by 3 and then add 2, would give us 8. There's only one answer for this. So in this equation, we can solve it. We can find an answer. For an expression, we can't find any answer. All we can do is simplify it. So in order for us to simplify expressions, there are two steps. We're going to distribute, and then we're going to combine like terms. You should be familiar with both of these things from 8th grade. You had to do distributing and combining like terms. So we're just going to go over it today and practice a few problems. Distributing, that's where we're multiplying to get rid of parentheses. You've seen problems like what I just had up on the board. Well, similar to what I had up on the board. Let's say 3 times the quantity of x minus 2. Everything inside this parenthesis goes together. Whatever x may be goes with the -2. So if we were trying to solve the problem, we'd have to know what x is. Then we would subtract 2 from that number, and then we would multiply by 3, and that would be our answer. But since we don't know what the number is yet, we can't do anything with the x. We're stuck with it. We're going to have to keep it around until we get an equal sign so that we can solve for it. So since we can't get rid of the x right now, and we can't subtract 2 from it because we don't know what the number is, we don't know what x is, we're just going to have to leave it like this and multiply everything in here by the 3 so that we can keep working with the numbers. Okay? This will help us simplify it, and in the future when we start solving equations, we'll be able to use this distributing to get the x by itself and figure out what the answer is. So we're going to take this number that's on the outside and multiply it to everything that's on the inside. I'm going to multiply 3 times x, and I'm going to multiply 3 times -2. Both of those things. You notice I just said -2. Okay? This minus sign goes with the number 2. So it becomes a -2. -2, -2, those are the exact same thing. All right, so if you're reading the problem, you would say x minus 2. But if you're talking about the number, that would be -2. It's still the same thing. So multiplying this out, 3 times x, anytime a number and a letter or a variable are being multiplied together, it's just the number and the variable combined together. So this would be 3x. And then 3 times -2, I have a positive times a negative. 3 times 2 is 6. Positive times a negative is going to give us a negative. That'll be minus 6 or negative 6. So our simplified expression, when we simplify 3 times the quantity of x minus 2, we get 3x minus 6. And if during this video you guys have a question or not sure about something, just raise your hand. I'm right there. And we can pause the video and talk about whatever questions or misunderstandings we may have, and then before we continue on. Let's try another example of negative 4 times the quantity of x minus 6. It's very similar to the last problem. It's just that the number outside of the parentheses is now negative. So that means we're going to be multiplying both of the things in here by a negative number. So I'm going to do negative 4 times x and negative 4 times negative 6. Negative 4 times x, again, we're multiplying a number times a variable. So a number and a variable multiplied together just gives us the number and variable, negative 4x. And then I have a negative times a negative, which is going to give me a, that's right, a positive. And 4 times 6 is 24. So we have simplified this mathematical expression to this. One more example before you guys try one out on your own. Negative the quantity of x plus 5. So when we're distributing, we want to take the number that's outside the parentheses and multiply it to everything that's inside. What number do we have outside the parentheses? I'll give you guys a second to think about it. We have an invisible 1. Okay, this is something that I'm sure you guys talked about in 7th or 8th grade, that anytime it's just the symbol, whatever, when something's by itself, like for example this x, there's 1x. All right, we don't write the 1 because in math we're lazy. But I can put the 1 there and it's not wrong, so I know I have 1x. Same thing with this minus sign or this negative sign. This means that there's negative 1 of these things. There's negative 1 set of parentheses that I need to multiply. So I'm going to multiply everything in the parentheses by negative 1 to simplify it. Negative 1 times x will give me negative 1x, or I could just say negative x. I don't have to put the 1 if I don't want to. Either way is correct. And negative 1 times 5, positive 5, is going to give me negative 5. So negative x minus 5 is the simplified form of negative the quantity of x plus 5. So now I'm going to give you guys one I want y'all to try. Give y'all about 10 seconds or so to jot it down on your paper there in your little notes section. So negative 3 times the quantity of x plus 5. We'll give you guys 10 seconds to answer that, and then we're going to go over it. Good job. Nice, very nice. All right. Since we're simplifying, we're going to distribute, get rid of these parentheses. We want to multiply everything inside the parentheses by the number outside. I'm going to multiply negative 3 to x and negative 3 to positive 5. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. Everybody good with that? Awesome. So we've talked about distributing, which is the first step of simplifying. It's the first step that you're going to do from now until the end of your life whenever you're working a math problem. You always want to get rid of the parentheses, and we do that by distributing. Now we're going to talk about combining like terms, which is the next thing on your note sheet. So it says combining like terms is just putting together variables and or numbers that have the same exponent. So on your sheet it says, remember, like terms have the first blank is variables, comma, the same exponent. They have to have both, okay? A like term is 4 and 5 are like terms because they're both numbers. I can put 4 and 5 together and I can get 9, okay? Apples and apples are like terms. I can have one apple and combine it with another apple and I'll have 2 apples, okay? I can't combine an apple and a banana together and get 2, I don't even know what you call it because they don't go together. Okay, I can't group them together. Same thing with the letters. I can group an X and an X, X plus an X, just like the apples would give me 2 X's. A Y and 3 Y's would give me 4 Y's together. Okay? What I can't do is put an X and a Y together. These are 2 different things. There's your apples and your bananas. I can't put them together and figure them out, so I would just have to leave it like this, and that would be the simplified form. That's the simplest form of this problem right now. So let's try a couple of examples. For right now though, we're only going to be dealing with one variable. We're just going to be dealing with X's. And later in the year, we'll be dealing where we have extra variables, where we have X's and Y's and Z's and A's and all different types of numbers all together. But for right now, we're only going to be dealing with problems that have one variable in it. So let's combine things that are alike. 3x plus 2 minus 6x minus 8. Okay? I want to put these things together and simplify it. So what 2 things are alike? What would be 2 things that are like terms? I heard someone say the 6x and the 3x, and I heard other people say the numbers, the 2 and the 8. That's right. Those things can be put together. I can put the x's together, and notice how I circled, when I circled the 6x, I also circled the minus sign that goes with it, because it's negative 6x. And we can put the numbers together, which I'm just going to underline. So if I have 3 x's and I have negative 6 x's, think about it. You have $3 and you owe someone $6, so negative 6. When you put all that together, what are you going to end up with? Are you going to have $9? You're going to have negative $3 left. Okay? So it's like, just think, 3 minus 6 would be negative 3, and the x's don't change. Okay? I have 2 apples and 3 apples. When I put them together, I'm going to end up with 5 apples. I'm not going to end up with 5 apples or 5 apples squared. It's just 5 apples. So the variables don't change when we're combining like terms. Let's put the numbers together. 2 minus 8 would give us negative 6. So we have simplified this original expression to this. We can't do anything more than this right now because this has an x in it. This is just a number by itself. We can't do anything unless we had an equal sign. So we can't make this any more simple than it already is. Let's try another example. Negative 4x minus 3 minus 2x plus 9. Things that I can put together and pair up. My x's. Again, don't forget that this symbol goes with the negative 2x, or goes with the 2x, making it negative. And I can put my numbers together. So let's put our x's together. Negative 4 minus 2. I hope somebody out there said negative 6. x. Negative 3 plus 9 gives us positive 6. So we have simplified this expression to that. And again, we can't do anything more with it right now. This is as simple as this can get. There's no way we can make it any more simplified. One more example before you guys try one. 2x minus 3x plus 7 minus 7. What are things that we can pair up together? The x's. Good, good. What else? The 7's, the numbers. All right. We'll make a square for the numbers this time. Again, don't forget that these symbols, these plus or minus symbols, go with the number that follows them. This is negative 3x. This is positive 7. This is negative 7. Now we're going to simplify. 2x's minus 3x's. 2 minus 3. Negative 1x. Do I have to have this one here? Would it be okay if I just had negative x? It would. That would be the same thing as negative 1x. Now we need to put the 7's together. So we have positive 7 and negative 7. 7 minus 7 would give us 0. Should I put a plus or a minus sign here? What do you guys think? Negative x plus 0 is just going to be negative x. Negative x minus 0, or I'm subtracting 0 from x. Still the same thing, it's still just going to be negative x. I'm not taking anything away. Do I even need to have this 0 here? No, because the 0 is not adding or taking anything away from the negative x. So we don't even need to have it. If this was a test question and there was a multiple choice answer, none of the answers would have minus or plus 0. It would just be the negative x. Okay. So to simplify this the most, we're going to get rid of the negative 0, and our answer would just be negative x, or negative 1x. Any questions before you guys try one out on your own? All right. So let's try 1 plus 2x minus 3 minus 4x. I'll give you guys 10 seconds to work this one out, and then we'll go over it. What are things that are alike that we can put together? The numbers. So 1, negative 3. The x's are alike, so we can put those together. 1 minus 3. Negative 2. Positive 2x minus 4x, positive 2 minus 4. Also negative 2. Don't forget your x. Now, this is simplified. Can't do anything else with it because we have a number and a letter. However, in algebra, we like to keep the letters in front of the numbers. We always want a number by itself to be at the end of any expression that we write. Okay? You could get this, and this is absolutely correct. This is 100% correct. But if we were taking a multiple choice test, you wouldn't see it like this, all right? The answer choice would look like this, where they flip the two things. Okay? They're always going to put the numbers at the end and the variables first in order to sort of test.